As the father of two beautiful children, I have to believe that mankind is capable of evolving beyond conflict to embrace peace. Unfortunately, though, we have seen a far too common theme throughout the history of man: the notion that a nation's strength is synonymous with its military might. History has shown us that power can be measured by battles won, territories conquered, and enemies vanquished. However, a deeper look at history shows that true strength is derived not only from a weapon, but from the vitality of the internal fabric of a nation. Abundant infrastructure, economy, society, and industry are hallmarks of a thriving society, and it is with this vision that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is establishing his policies. In the context of America's trajectory over the past few decades, I find myself desiring this more holistic approach towards a future for my children and future grandchildren. Let's face it, we are stuck in a paradoxical situation. The United States of America boasts the most significant military arsenal in human history. An unfathomable amount of taxpayer dollars are funneled towards the military-industrial complex on a daily basis. Meanwhile, under the weight of neglect, our internal foundation has crumbled right before our eyes. For decades, we have narrowly focused on external threats, and that has led to the erosion of vital components of American strength. Infrastructure projects have been delayed or underfunded, economic inequality has widened, and societal divisions have been lit ablaze. Industrial sectors, well, they've been ignored. We are now surrounded by the consequences of this neglect. We are strong on the surface, but our core has become brittle, with cracks and fissures beginning to show. I believe that the Kennedy administration is well aware of this alarming trend and will make every effort to create an entire paradigm shift. Instead of a singular focus on external adversaries, RFK wants to direct his eyes towards an internal revitalization that American families desperately need in order to support their hopes and dreams. RFK Jr. believes that the strength of our great nation lies in the well-being of our citizens, the efficiency and diversity of our industries, and the resilience of our infrastructure. This would be no small feat to accomplish, and it would require a foundation-level adjustment of priorities. It would also require that we redirect investments towards enhancing fundamental components of the nation. Our defense spending is very quickly approaching $1 trillion on an annual basis. That's trillion with a T. And we have nearly 800 military bases throughout the world. These numbers shine a light upon the singular focus upon militarization as a strength. That's not what we should be measuring ourselves by. Because meanwhile at home, we find a citizenry more polarized than ever. Our borders are a porous mess. Inflation is decimating family savings, and the American dream, well, that's disappearing at a surprising pace. It is very clear to me that we need to reprioritize our resources. While many people consider the problem to be an imperialistic effort, I believe the problem is far more simple. Ego. E-G-O. The result of 2 world wars put a chip on our shoulders that caused us to lose sight of why we were involved in the first place. The successes of the military machine and the home front allowed us to insist that we have the responsibility to police the world to the detriment of our citizens. Instead of being a shining example for the world to aspire to on their own accord, we have focused upon manipulation in secret and forcing through might. I am sick and tired of seeing the United States making both friends and enemies out of fear and intimidation. We have seen these consequences play out in Ukraine. We lost sight of our responsibility towards diplomacy and instead believed supremely in the execution of our might. From my perspective, the current administration has isolated their responsibility for communication to a small, select group of allies. I expect my president to be able to talk to any leader of any nation at any time. Instead, we have drawn a distinct line in the sand that has stopped our leadership from fulfilling their required role of diplomacy. It is for this reason that I am eager to see what RFK Jr. could do with a more introspective and constructive approach. Now comes the hard part. To foster a climate of peace and cooperation amongst nations, we have to admit that it will require a good faith effort on the part of the United States of America. To do so, we have to dismantle the entrenched mindset of viewing the world through the lens of enemies and adversaries. As with any good relationship, peace requires some give and take. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has a vision of reduced aggression not only for America, but for nations throughout the world. This requires an administration that pledges to lead by example and make a commitment to respecting sovereignty, international cooperation, and inspiring grassroots freedom. By alleviating some of the need for military might, we can free up funds and resources that will be necessary for repairing the cracks in American society. At the core of RFK Jr.'s policies is a distinct aim to restore America's moral leadership on a global stage. There is an interdependence of internal and external forces in shaping our strength as a nation. For our families, we must have a president who tenaciously charts a path towards a more resilient, prosperous, and peaceful future. Countless empires have failed throughout history. Perhaps it's time to place greater value in humility and cooperation. We can be the beacon of freedom and democracy. But first, we must look in the mirror, be honest with ourselves, admit our faults, and find a way to repair what truly makes our country great. Together, we can build a peaceful and prosperous future for our children without the gray clouds of military conflict constantly soaring over our heads. I believe we can do that with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as our president.